Hello and welcome back to the Point and Quest podcast, the cozy corner where we explore the wonderful world of adventure games and warm our hands over the flickering flames of nostalgia. It's December 1st, which means winter is officially here in my book, even if the calendar says otherwise. The chill is in the air, the frost on the windows. It all feels like the perfect time to immerse ourselves in a game where winter isn't just a season, but an all-encompassing force. Today, I'm replaying a game that was suggested after our Shadows of Darkness episode, so shout out to the listener who reminded me how much I love this frosty gem. Like I said, I've played it before, but what better time to revisit it than now? A game like Heroine's Quest, the Herald of Ragnarok, is practically tailor-made for wintry nights, cozy blankets, and a nice cup of tea. Or maybe mead, if you're really leaning into those Norse vibes. When you think of a hero, what comes to mind? A broad-chested warrior? A wizened mage? In Heroine's Quest, the Herald of Ragnarok, you're the hero. But in this world, heroism is about more than strength. It's about choices, survival, and maybe sneaking in the occasional lockpick. Welcome to this frosty episode of the Point and Quest podcast, where we're delving headfirst into Heroine's Quest, the Herald of Ragnarok. Whether you're a longtime fan of Sierra-style adventure games, or you just like the idea of role-playing as a rogue, like I always do, you're in for a treat. Today we'll explore the game's intricate puzzles, layered RPG mechanics, unforgettable characters, and its roots in Norse mythology. So grab your mittens, sharpen your axe, or if you're like me, oil your picks, and let's venture into this indie masterpiece. Heroine's Quest is an indie gem developed by Crystal Shard, a Dutch studio, and was released on December 25th, 2013, Christmas Day, which feels kind of perfect for a game so deeply connected to the season of winter. The game runs on the Adventure Game Studio engine, blending the charm of classic point-and-click adventures with RPG elements. I'd call it a love letter to Quest for Glory, but that really doesn't do it justice. It's inspired by Norse mythology, drawing heavily from the Poetic Edda, and even more specifically, the looming threat of Ragnarok, and has truly created its own mythos in the Quest for Glory world, if you will. The game drops us into the frost-covered city of Forn-Sigtuna, gripped by an endless winter thanks to Ethger, the last of the frost giants. The stakes couldn't be higher. Ragnarok, the end of the world, is on the horizon, and people are clinging to what little hope and rations they have left. But the Jarl has called upon a heroine, a customizable, badass adventurer, to be tasked with saving the city, its people, and maybe the entire world. The story takes you through Forn-Sigtuna, the neighboring village of Manavagir, and the magical realm of Svartalfheim. The central conflict revolves around the Eyes of Thiassi, which the frost giant's troll lackey, Thorvaldi, is desperately trying to obtain. The heroine must not only foil his plans, but gain the trust of the locals. No small feat, given their wariness of outsiders. Go ahead and put a chip down on your adventure game bingo card for that trope. The climax unfolds in Ethger's frozen fortress. It's a showdown of epic proportions, packed with strategy, combat, and puzzles. Pick a path, any path. Now, if you've ever wondered what it's like to play as a warrior, a rogue, and a sorceress, this game has you covered. Like the Quest for Glory series, Heroine's Quest gives you 3 classes to choose from, and each one changes how you approach puzzles, combat, and interactions. As a warrior, you're smashing through obstacles like an axe through butter. As a rogue, you're sweet-talking your way out of every problem and sneaking into places you really shouldn't. Or maybe you play as a sorceress, relying on magic and brains to navigate this icy apocalypse. If you've ever wanted to channel your inner badass while debating whether to parry or pickpocket, this game is for you. Heroine's Quest plays like a classic Quest for Glory game, but dare I say, better in some ways. I mean, this game is still getting updates and fixes to this day. The mix of adventure-style puzzles and RPG mechanics creates this beautiful synergy of wit and combat. And just to be clear, this isn't your damsel in distress narrative. The game centers on a female protagonist who doesn't just exist in the Norse-inspired world. She owns it. Growing up, many of us probably spent hours lost in the world of games. And these specific games, with their intricate puzzles and compelling stories, often featured male protagonists. But then, every so often, a game would introduce a female lead. It felt like a refreshing change, even though these characters were often still wrapped in a familiar, somewhat limiting style. One of the earliest examples of this is Princess Rosella from the King's Quest series, a character who, while iconic in her own right, still found herself in the all-too-common role of a princess who needed rescuing. Now, it's not to say that Rosella is some helpless damsel. Far from it. We see this the first time we encounter her, and then again as we play her in The Perils of Rosella. I really appreciated the way she was written, even from a young age. She's clever, resourceful, and brave. She has a lot to offer, and yet Rosella's journey is sometimes shaped by the need for someone to save her. This doesn't take away her agency or accomplishments. She's an intelligent, capable character. But when we look at King's Quest games of the 80s and 90s, there's still that underlying class and fairy tale structure of a rather privileged princess who, while fluent in many things, never really mastered the art of stair climbing. And in many ways, this is how early female protagonists in games were portrayed. Agency, yes, but still caught in narratives where they were framed as needing to be saved or protected. Sure, they were strong, independent, but they often had to prove it through their reliance on someone else or by safeguarding something fragile about themselves. These characters, even the ones we love like Rosella, were often one step away from the kind of protagonist we might have wanted to see. Someone whose strength is independent of needing to be saved. That's where this game comes in. If we see King's Quest as a milestone in the evolution of female characters in games, like truly, Rosella was a great character to be able to see growing up. Heroine's Quest feels like the next logical step, one that takes the idea of the strong female lead and pushes it even further. The heroine in Heroine's Quest is active. She's not waiting for someone else to solve her problems. She doesn't need a prince or a hero or her brother or her mother to rescue her. She's taking charge. She's being called on, making choices, taking risks, and defining her own path. It's this shift in narrative that makes the game really meaningful, especially for those of us who grew up with characters who, despite their competence, still found themselves frail in some ways. This shift isn't just about taking away the rescuer. It's about the kind of character we see in Heroine's Quest. Much like the action heroes we may have grew up watching, she's not afraid to fight for what's right, even if it means making tough decisions along the way. She embodies qualities that traditionally have been associated with male heroes: strength, independence, wit, but she doesn't need anyone else to define her journey. She's already making it on her own terms. And she often uses her feminine qualities to her advantage, which is just a clever way of writing this thought into the story. And it's this, I think, that resonates most powerfully. For those of us who grew up with games where the female characters were often relegated to supporting roles or were wrapped up in narratives about waiting to be swept off their feet or saved from certain cruel fates, Heroine's Quest offers something different. Here's a hero who doesn't just react to the world around her. She actively shapes it. She's not defined by the need for saving. She's the one doing the saving. This game is full of surprises, and for those who love a good Easter egg, this game delivers in spades. Here are some of the coolest hidden gems tucked into the adventure that I've found or read about. The Hera's Ring Easter egg. For those of us who are fans of the Quest for Glory series, this one's really neat. If you name your heroine after one of the love interests from Quest for Glory 5, she'll start the game with Hera's ring in her inventory. This clever detail suggests that she's the daughter or descendant of the original hero and is named after her mother or a female ancestor. It's a fun homage to Quest for Glory 5 and adds an extra layer of continuity between the two games. Tetris, anyone? If you decide to turn down the Jarl's call to adventure, the main quest, in the game, he'll mock you for not wanting to take part in the adventure. But if you refuse him a second time, the game gets even better. Jarl offers you a chance to play a fully functional game of Tetris. It's an endless game, though eventually you will lose. When that happens, you get a hilarious game over message saying, "The world ended because you were too busy becoming the best Tetris player to save it." A playful and meta nod to the nature of adventure games. The ultimate strength hack. Now, for the ultimate trick for those who want to max out their heroine's strength, if you fail to draw the sword from the tree 100 times in a row, your heroine's strength and endurance stats will instantly max out. It's a quirky little shortcut that rewards persistence with a boost to your character's abilities, even if you're failing miserably at the task at hand. It's an Easter egg that plays on the idea of trial and error, turning failure into success. These are the kind of things that I love to see in games. They reward players who take the time to explore every corner, offering a little gift for curiosity. And now it's time for click-worthy characters.
Humans have such poor senses, but I knew you would recognize me eventually. So yes, prepare to meet your doom at the hands of Raknorak. Claws of Ratatusk, that is, claws of doom. Claws that shall pierce your skin and spill your blood in the forest. Yes.
Ratatusk. Ratatusk is the self-proclaimed doom squirrel, and honestly, he might be the most endearing nuisance in the realm. With his bright, fiery eyes and overly dramatic threats, despite his dire proclamations, the doom squirrel is, at best, an ineffective villain. His grand plans are less about destruction and more about generating annoyances. He is, after all, just a squirrel, a tiny, irrepressible, and surprisingly cute little creature with a big ego. He tries hard to be menacing, often littering his speech with endless array of doom, because he really loves that word. It's as if the mere utterance of it fuels his sense of power. But there's something almost sweet in his misguided passion. You could almost pity him, or at least chuckle at his efforts. You might even try to convince him that the word bloom works better in his vocabulary. And if you're lucky, he'll take it to heart. Yes, Ratatusk can have a change of heart. He'll go from the doom squirrel to the bloom squirrel, making him a surprisingly sympathetic figure for all his comical evil attempts. He'll show up throughout the journey, not with grand schemes, but with the need to taunt and test the heroine. His presence ranges from mildly annoying to oddly endearing. Sure, he's immortal and determined, but what good is immortality when you can't even follow through on a simple threat? He might think of himself as a great villain, but all he really manages to be is a persistent reminder that not every adversary needs to be taken seriously. His attempts to strike fear fall flat. At his core, he's an ineffectual villain who might want to be feared, but his failure to live up to the hype just makes him, well, cute. Whether you're rolling your eyes or offering him a change of heart, you can't help but smile at the Doom Squirrel's antics. Brynhild. Brynhild is a complex and fiercely independent character. Known as a powerful Valkyrie in Norse mythology, she's often depicted as a figure of both strength and tragedy. Her story is one of love, betrayal, and fate. A warrior who defies the gods, she challenges the very expectations placed on her. Brynhild stands as a symbol of defiance and consequences of challenging the divine order, and her decisions often have grave repercussions. Her sexuality is ambiguous, though it's heavily implied that she is in love with Sigurd, though she also shows some attraction toward the heroine. Sigurd is the leader of Magnavagir and one of the owners of the Eye of Thiassi. He's also an iconic figure in Norse mythology, a hero whose fate is marked by both glory and tragedy. Known for his slaying of the dragon Fafnir, Sigurd is a symbol of bravery and adventure. Kraka is a really fun character. Kraka is an orphan living in the town of Magnavagir, where survival often requires cunning and pragmatism. You'll partner with her if you play as the rogue heroine, and though she might seem like just another street urchin begging for coin and pretending to be down on her luck, Kraka is actually a skilled thief with a charm that disarms even the most wary. She's known for her sharp wit and a certain graceful loser quality. If she's caught stealing from the heroine, she'll simply return the stolen goods without much fuss. But while she's not above petty theft, she operates with a sense of pragmatism. If you want her help, you'll need to offer something in return. For example, if you need to retrieve some sort of meowing creature from a tree, she'll charge an outrageous price for fish needed to lure it down. If you approach her without providing anything to help her survive the harsh winter, food, warm clothes, or money, she'll be ruder and less inclined to help. Kraka's lovable rogue persona is bolstered by her accent and street-smart charm. Her quick wit and ability to navigate social situations make her a likable, if morally ambiguous character. She might not always be the most reliable ally, but her resourcefulness and street skills are invaluable when it comes to getting things done. Hervor is a character whose life is marked by a forced transformation. Once a swan, she was magically bound to human form by Voland, who claimed her as his wife by taking away her wings. This transformation shapes much of her identity, leaving her both physically and emotionally tethered to the world she never chose. Though outwardly quiet and demure, Hervor has a deep well of love for her son. Her love for him is evident in everything she does, from the smallest gestures to the most desperate actions. But despite her gentle nature, Hervor is far from helpless. She may not be the loudest or most aggressive character, but her determination to protect her son is fierce. In a more mundane sense, Hervor also serves as a forced tutorial of sorts, guiding the heroine through parts of the story. While it's possible to avoid it by choosing the wrong options, taking the time to learn from her adds valuable insights, though failing to do so will cost you points. Still, despite the quiet nature of her role, Hervor's capacity for love and her inner strength make her an unforgettable character. Thrivaldi is the strongest of the trolls in Yarnvidir, a hulking and intimidating figure, though not without significant flaws. With 2 heads, he's, again, not sure if this is plural or not, with 2 heads, he's a physical powerhouse, but intellectually severely lacking, making him both an absurd and dangerous adversary. Though Thrivaldi embodies many of the classic troll tropes, arguing with himself, enjoying human flesh, and turning to stone in the sunlight, his bumbling nature make him more of a comedic villain than a truly menacing one. His 2 heads argue constantly, with the right head asserting itself as the leader and giving orders to the left head, which only adds to the absurdity. Maybe having 2 heads isn't better than one. In the end, Thrivaldi's greatest moment of failure comes when the heroine tricks him into staying outside Ethgar's castle long enough for the sun to rise, turning him to stone. Winter is coming, and it's personal. Okay, back to reality. The real emotional pull of Heroine's quest comes from the stakes you face. This is a world on the brink of disaster. People are suffering from the eternal winter. The giants are threatening twilight. And even the heroes you meet have their own burdens to bear. Each character, from fierce to cryptic, brings their own story into the mix. The emotional weight of their struggles makes your journey feel like a small but vital piece of something much bigger. In the end, Heroine's Quest, the Herald of Ragnarok, is a game that knows how to blend storytelling, puzzle solving, and RPG elements into a truly memorable experience. Whether you're battling frost giants, solving riddles, or forging relationships with squirrels, this game offers a world that pulls you in and doesn't let go. If you're a fan of classic adventure games, or if you're looking for a new challenge, this one's really worth a play. It's free on multiple platforms, including Steam, and you can purchase the DLC for a couple of bucks if you wanted to show appreciation and get some cool extra content. I'm truly overwhelmed by how great this game is, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for sequels, maybe, hopefully. Heroine's Quest, the Herald of Ragnarok, feels even more magical during these colder months. It's like the snow outside my window is in on the experience. Or at least it would be if I didn't live in Texas. A big thank you again for the listener who suggested I revisit this gem. It was absolutely the right call. As we march deeper into winter, it feels fitting to explore more games that embrace the darker, colder themes of the season. Next time we'll be venturing into yet another wintry world, but I'll leave you to puzzle out what that might be. Until then, keep questing, keep puzzling, and try not to let the frost trolls catch you on your way home.